Hello. So today we are going to be learning about a new strategy that will help you determine unfamiliar words in your text as you're reading. So our objective today is the students will be able to give meaning to unfamiliar words using context clues. So we're going to start, if you want to go ahead and pull out your novel, Hello Universe, we're going to read an excerpt from that novel. So if you want to go ahead and prepare and go to page 28. In the meantime, I just want to explain why it's really important to be able to determine the meaning of unfamiliar words in a text without using a dictionary. Because for one, you won't always have a dictionary to use to help you define these words. Also, if you're reading, sometimes we have the tendency just to skip over words that we don't know or don't understand. And the reason why that's not good is because our word bank in our head, our word knowledge, does not grow. And therefore, it also hinders us from becoming better readers. If we also skip over words, some of those words might be really important to understanding the true meaning of what we're reading. So we are going to practice today using the context clue strategy, as well as some other strategies we've learned, like substituting in synonyms for words that we don't know that may help us understand the meaning of an unfamiliar word. So again, our model is we're going to turn to page 28. So if you want to go ahead and meet me there in your book, I'm going to read an excerpt. It's towards the bottom of the page. It starts with "She also had a tendency." So I'm going to read it out loud, and then we'll determine the word that we want to define. She also had a tendency to run through hobbies. Jen was determined to become the champion of something one day. It used to be hopscotch, then monkey bars, then checkers. There was a discarded recorder on the floor that she had once planned to master, and a chapter book on Abraham Lincoln from the time she decided to become an amateur historian. So I'm going to stop right there because I don't know what the word amateur means. So I've written it here. Amateur. That is the word that we are going to figure out the meaning of. So I'm going to ask myself, well, what do I know from what I've read so far? I know that we're talking about Jen, and we know that Jen is Kaori's younger sister. So we know that she's a young child of some sort. We don't know her exact age, but we know that she's a young child. It says in there that she wants to champion something. We know that champion means to master something or be really good at it. So she's trying to find hobbies that she can be really good at. So what I might try to do is substitute a different word in. Maybe, let's see here. Let me reread that part of the sentence. She once planned to master in a chapter book on Abraham Lincoln from the time she decided to become an amateur historian. So I might substitute a non-professional, because we know that she's not old enough to be a true historian, or an inexpert, because she wouldn't be an expert because she didn't go to like college for it or anything. So let's see if that makes sense. If I substitute amateur, if I substitute in the word unprofessional or professional or inexpert. A chapter book on Abraham Lincoln from the time she decided to become an unprofessional or inexpert historian, or a young historian. That might sound better actually, because we know she's a young girl. So let's try that again. A chapter book on Abraham Lincoln from the time she decided to become a young historian. That sounds about right. So from looking at my context clues and figuring out a synonym that might replace the word amateur, I think that amateur means young, new at something, or being exposed to something for the first time. So that's what I think amateur means. Hopefully you can agree. So now that we've looked at that, can you see how the context clues and other strategies that I've practiced helped us figure out the meaning of amateur? So now we're going to move into some more practice. We may use context clues in our everyday life, such as going to a restaurant when we're reading menus, when we're reading billboard signs, when we're reading papers at the doctor. There's a lot of times we're going to come across words that we do not know. So I'm going to tell you a story. I went to a restaurant and I was reading the menu. I'd already had my dinner, so we were looking at the dessert menu. And while we were looking at the dessert menu and I was reading it over, I came across, I wrote it right here for you, creamy, cold, vanilla gelato. And I thought to myself, I've never heard the word gelato. What is gelato? So I thought, well, I know that I'm reading the dessert menu, so it must be some sort of dessert. I also know that it's creamy, cold, and has a vanilla flavor. So when I thought to myself, well, a dessert that is creamy, cold, and has a vanilla flavor, to me that means ice cream. So creamy, cold, vanilla ice cream on the dessert menu. Does that sound right? Well, of course, I asked the waiter and they said yes. Gelato is ice cream. So you can see how I used my context clues to figure out what gelato meant and what it was. Otherwise, and I love ice cream, if I didn't figure out what it meant, I may not have ordered it, but I did and it was delicious. So now we're going to move in. We're going to do one more practice before we move into Reader's Workshop. And we're going to look at a sentence that has a nonsense word. And you know that nonsense words are not real. But that's okay. It still gives us the practice that we need to figure out what my nonsense word means or what I want it to mean. So I'm going to read this first sentence here. It says, Sally and her friends went to the pool and they all wore their new Ellipods. And you can see I've underlined the word Ellipods. So I'm going to stop right there. Sometimes when we are reading and we come across a word we don't know and we want to use context clues, sometimes it's not enough just to use the sentence that the word is in. Sometimes we have to read the sentence before or after, sometimes both before and after, to figure out the word that's in question. So when we read this first sentence, there's not enough information to figure out what Ellipods is. At this point, it could be headphones, it could be towels, it could be beach bags. We don't know what it is. So let's move on to the next sentence. The girls wanted to show off their new pretty painted toenails. So again, we're going to ask ourselves, what do we know? Well, we know that the girls are going to the pool, so it's probably a warm or hot day. They're going to the pool to go swimming. And we also know that they wanted to show off their pretty painted toenails. So we know that in order to show off your pretty toenails, you have to either be barefoot or you have to have some sort of shoe that is open-toed that shows your toenails. So if I were to substitute the word Ellipods with a sandal or a flip-flop, let me see if that makes sense. Sally and her friends went to the pool and they all wore their new flip-flops. The girls wanted to show off their new pretty painted toenails. That makes sense. So I can conclude that the word Ellipods is some sort of sandal, open-toe shoe, or flip-flop. So I use the word flip-flops, and that's perfectly fine. So now that we've done some practice, I'm going to send you off into Reader's Workshop. Your assignment today in Reader's Workshop is to continue reading Hello Universe. You're going to read chapters 7 and 8 in your novel. And what you're going to do is you're going to bring your journal with you, your reader's journal, and something to write with. I have, 6 words here that I wrote down. I want you to write them down in your journal. And as you're reading, when you come across these words, some of you may know some of them, but hopefully not all of you know all of them. So hopefully there's some in here that you do not know. And I want you to use the strategies that we use today, the context clues and possibly substituting a new word in to figure out the meaning while you're reading. And at the end of Reader's Workshop, we're all going to come back together and we will discuss the meanings that you guys came up with, or the definitions. And we'll come up with a collective class definition for all of these words, and we can add them to our class word wall. So go ahead, remember you're going to read chapters 7 and 8. You're going to write down these words, and here they are. They're humiliation, fate, coincidence, taught, obscure, and trainee. So you're going to write all those words down in your reader's notebook. Find a comfy spot in the room to read chapter 7 and 8. And as you come across these words, you're going to use the strategies that we've learned today to figure out the meaning and record the meaning in your Reader's Workshop journal. All right, I hope to see you guys soon and have a great time. Enjoy!